There really aren't too many people from the French Revolution who are memorialized and celebrated, at least not in monuments. I mean, there's one of Danton. I think Danton is a much more acceptable or palatable character. He has a lot more sympathy because, well, Robespierre turned his back on him and betrayed him along with his good friend Desmoulins and fellow classmate at Lycée Louis le Grand.
Desmoulins was practically a family member.
There's more sympathy for people like Danton. But Robespierre, on the other hand.
So what is the legacy of Robespierre? After his execution, his body was taken to the Erancis Cemetery, where it remained for a few years. After that, it was then taken, like so many bones, so many remains, and brought to the Catacombs of Paris, I believe Denfert Rochereau. And so his remains, his bones, are completely anonymous now in that wall or sea of bones beneath
the streets of Paris. As tends to be the case with most historical protagonists, Robespierre is much too complicated to be neatly categorized as simply the good guy or the bad guy. On one hand, he absolutely was an individual of extraordinary intellect, of genuinely virtuous ideals, and with passionate aspirations about how society could be more humanely reconceived. He was also an individual of the highest integrity and self-discipline, led by the firmest of convictions and the absolute best intentions. But perhaps his fatal mistake, and I believe that this is where the lesson from the tragedy of Robespierre lies, was in his reliance upon the very same, if not worse, severely repressive, brutal, and dictatorial tactics, albeit in the name of virtue, as the Ancien Régime he sought to overthrow. There is a small plaque dedicated to Robespierre at the Conciergerie, along with a lovely terracotta bust. Otherwise, however, there is no proudly placed public bronze statue such as exists for Danton, nor is there even a street in France's capital that bears his name. There is a metro station called Robespierre just beyond the periphery of Paris, but the ingloriousness of the placement of this homage almost gives us the sense that his memory is being swept under the rug. Likewise, a modest bust has been erected in the suburb of Saint-Denis, but it's not terribly heroic or particularly well sculpted, and again, the placement is not a particularly proud one. In fact, the most impressive commemorative monument dedicated to Robespierre was erected in the very heart of Moscow by Vladimir Lenin, who referred to Robespierre as a Bolshevik before Bolshevism. And this seems perfectly appropriate to me because, like François-Noël Babeuf, Robespierre envisioned Marxist ideology long before Marx. As for his home on Rue Saint-Honoré, it is now a posh, upscale boutique. Bit of an ironic affront for one who was so frugal and such a dedicated champion of the poor. One could argue that, in effect, possibly the most significant legacy of Robespierre was that his extreme impact created the opportunity for the other, or the counter-extreme, to rise just 5 years later with an even larger-than-life figure.